Welcome to Remember the Texans. This is your host, Nick Scurfield, and very excited to launch this show at the Apollo HOU headquarters in downtown Houston, Texas. You can find us on Apollo Houston YouTube, coming soon to audio podcast platforms. Shout out to our producer, Josh Hill. Noah Outlaw. What's happening, Noah?
What's up? Good to be here. Thanks for having me here.
Good to have you here. Where can people find you on social media?
Outlaw Noah and also Apollo Texans. I run over there as well.
All right. Noah's going to help us with some fact checking and just general decorum here throughout this episode today.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is the start of the 2023 NFL season. It's a new era in Houston Texans football. New coach, DeMeco Ryans. I'm wearing the cap shirt here that I got at the introductory press conference.
It's amazing.
We've got C.J. Stroud, the number 2 overall pick at quarterback. Will Anderson Jr., who is my pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year. A lot of young talent on this team. It's time to remember the Texans. And that's basically the premise of this show. We're going to be rediscovering the team through conversations with friends, with fans, with current former players, with experts like Noah. With people from Houston that just have a passion for the Texans. It's been a hard road as Texans fans, especially these last 5-10 years, but totally different culture right now. And for myself, I worked for the Texans from 2007 to 13. It's why I moved to Houston in 2007, straight out of college at USC. I got an internship writing articles for the Texans website, HoustonTexans.com. And I was supposed to be here for a 6-month internship. It turned into a 6-year job where I was the primary writer for the team website, helped to launch all the Texans social media pages, because back in 2007, 2008, they didn't have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or X now, which is crazy to think about. I've realized over the past few years, I've stayed pretty active on Twitter at Nick Scurfield. Tweeting about the Texans, it used to be a big part of my job, but it's gotten harder and harder to do that over the years as we've gone through, a lot of these different eras in Texans football. And I've found myself getting, just less and less attached to the team. But I realized over these last couple of years, especially, that I just really love the Texans. And I care about the team. I'll watch the games on Sundays, and it's hard to watch when there's not much of a direction or not much hope for the team these last couple of years. But I've still found it something that's really important to me. And I was visiting Europe last summer, walking around in Cinque Terre in Italy, and I just started thinking about the team, and it's something that I think I'm not alone in this in saying that this is a really exciting new time for the team. Noah, you could probably attest to this, but this is the first time I've been really excited about professional football in Houston in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. You can just feel it in the city right now. It's really cool, especially someone like you who has such a connection to the team, working there, having a big role in that organization, honestly, from what it sounds like.
I wouldn't go that far.
If you're the main writer on the site, you launched these Twitter accounts and all this, that's a big deal. And so someone like you who kind of took a step back through some times and, just kind of fell out of it, but you still had that feeling, like you said, you're walking around. Where were you, Italy?
Yeah.
You're walking around Italy thinking about the Houston Texans. That means something.
Yeah. And actually it used to, pardon my French, but it used to scare the shit out of me that I had the Texans Twitter on my phone, because I'd be like out at a bar and I'd open Twitter on my phone to try to tweet something from my personal account, and the Texans Twitter would pop up with like 1 million followers, and I was always worried I was going to be like that intern you hear about that gets fired for accidentally tweeting something, but it never happened, thankfully, and now I don't drink alcohol anymore, so we made it through there. But yeah, it's I got here in 2007 as an intern, and the franchise was 5 years old at the time. The team launched in 2002, of course, after the Tennessee Titans uprooted, or the Houston Oilers uprooted and went to Nashville. Took football, took the team colors, which they have the audacity to now wear this year when they're going to play the Texans. So that's another conversation for another day. Bob McNair brought the Texans to Houston in 2002 as a 30-second franchise. What I knew about the Texans when I got here in 2007, I'm from Mississippi. On the Gulf Coast. I went to college at USC. I primarily knew the Texans as a team that passed on Reggie Bush in the 2006 draft. Reggie Bush was the Heisman Trophy winning running back at USC when I went to school there. I worked for the football team. I literally knew who maybe 4 or 5 players were on the Texans back then. It was Andre Johnson, who I knew was an awesome receiver from Miami. Matt Schaub, they had just traded from the Atlanta Falcons for a couple second-round draft picks. I was really excited about getting a chance to meet Amon Green, who's a guy I used to play with in Madden when he was with the Green Bay Packers. They had just traded for him, the running back. Mario Williams, and then DeMeco Ryans had just won Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2006. I got there in 2007. Fast forward to today, DeMeco Ryans is now the head coach. And, it's come full circle for the Texans. For me and for a lot of fans, I think seeing DeMeco Ryans back there, it was very unexpected just with the way things have gone. And I've got all the confidence in the world in that. And now we actually have something to look forward to. We actually have things to be excited about. There's new energy around the team, new culture, new players. And I don't know about but I'm diving back in. I'm like all the way back in. I went to a preseason game. I'm going to try to go to every single home game this year as much as I can. We're going to be doing this weekly, talking to people about the team. And I, quite frankly, I don't care if they win 5 games this year, which I could easily see happening as long as they're showing signs of improvement, which they already have, and I'm sure they will. I think it's the perfect time to rediscover the team, reconnect with the team, and get on board with what's going on.
Yeah, 100%. And also I've been, really, really invested even through these last couple of years, and sadly, wasted some Sundays. I'm not going to lie, watching some, not wasted because obviously, you get to support no matter what, but it is a good time for people to get back into it right now. There's a lot of hope, a lot of optimism. Like you've mentioned, Stroud, Will Anderson, DeMeco is huge. I mean, I like to say it's like we got the hottest girl at school or whatever. Everyone wanted DeMeco. We got him. No one knows why. Honestly, people are like, why did he go there? But it's exciting, and there's a lot of stuff to be hopeful for and excited for.
Yeah, even in the preseason, the preseason game that we had at home against the Dolphins, I mean, the Texans got smoked. And I went to the game, and I didn't care. It was half full. It's preseason, but you could feel excitement in the stadium. It's going to be a long road. I think we all recognize that. But at least, there's something to hold on to right now. And as for this show, I'm not much of a hot take guy. I might hit you with one every now and then. I'm much more of a silver linings kind of guy. And that's what we're going to be looking at on this show, and talking to people, whether it's, current or former players or reporters or day one season ticket holders, friends of mine. That's what we really want to bring in on this. I was there during the Gary Kubiak years, 2007 to 13, some great years with the back-to-back division championships in 2011-12, the first time the team ever made the playoffs. J.J. Watt's rookie year was 2011. And I remember that Bulls on Parade defense. And I'm excited to see what DeMeco Ryans does. But before we get into all that, we have to start back at the beginning of the franchise and look at what we got to today. And we want to talk about, it has been a long road for Texans fans. This is 21 seasons in right now. The team launched in 2002. The Texans' record in 21 seasons, 142, 195, and won a very ignominious tie in week 1 of last season. 6 playoff appearances. The Texans are one of 4 teams that have never been to a Super Bowl, and we have the distinction of being the only team that has never advanced to a conference championship game. So think about that. We've never even been to the AFC championship game. We're the only team that can make that distinction. All that to say, it's been tough. It's been tough. And football is king in Texas. The NFL is obviously the most dominant sport by far. And when I worked for the team, when the team was even 8-8 and 500, the city would really come on fire. When the Texans made the playoffs for the first time in 2011 with T.J. Yates as a rookie quarterback and Arian Foster and Andre Johnson and Owen Daniels, and you had the Bulls on Parade defense with Cushing and Jonathan Joseph as a younger player, and J.J. Watt as a rookie, and DeMeco Ryans. The city was on fire with that stuff. And I left the team in 2013, coming off back-to-back division championships. I thought the Texans were going to win a Super Bowl. I honestly did. They signed Ed Reed in the offseason. I was there in the office. I even have a picture on my Instagram of Ed Reed signing his contract and going out for his first practices with the Texans. They had just drafted DeAndre Hopkins, DJ Swearinger. And I left that summer to go work at a PR agency. So now I have a PR agency called Scurfield Group. I'm one of the owners of Trill Burgers, which is at NRG Stadium. That's another sidebar. But I remember that 2013 season, they won the first 2 games, then they went 2-14, and the wheels fell off. Gary Kubiak had a mini stroke at halftime of the game on, I think it was Sunday Night Football against the Colts when Case Keenum was playing. He was balling out. Wade Phillips was the interim coach for a while. They didn't win another game. All the coaches got fired. And then the Texans hired Bill O'Brien. A year later, 2 years later, all of those coaches that got fired went to Denver and won the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. So we got to see all them celebrating with the Lombardi Trophy and played about what could have been. We had Brock Osweiler, that whole experiment where the Texans allegedly signed him without even meeting him in person before they signed him. And then in order to get rid of him, they had to trade him to the Cleveland Browns with the 2nd-round pick just to get them to take on his salary. We had, and I hear Noah sighing.
Yeah, it was just triggering.
We had some brutal home playoff losses. Bill O'Brien actually had a winning record as the Texans head coach. But we lost, I think it was 30-0 to the Chiefs in a home playoff game, where I remember it was Brian Hoyer at quarterback. I think the Chiefs returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. I literally was sitting down in my seat. The roof's about to pop off of that place because it was so loud. Then it just went dead quiet, and they lost 30-0.
Actually, so that game, I've been fortunate enough to work for back when Fox Sports was doing everything. I was able to be a PA and be on the field for that game, and I was so excited. I was like, dude, I'm on the field. I was a diehard Texans fan. I could not believe it. J.J. Watt was running out of the tunnel, the fire. I was right there, so excited. That opening kickoff.
It sucked the life out of the stadium.
Yeah, it was. That's when I knew. I was like, okay, this is going to be tough.
And then we had a few years later. Because I think O'Brien won 4 division titles. We played the Colts in the divisional round. It was one of his last years in Houston. I think it was Andrew Luck's last game, actually, or last win, or somewhere around that. It was 21-7. The Texans lost at home to the Colts, but that game, I think it was 21-0, and it felt like that game was more like 42-7. It was just not even close. You had that happening a few times. Of course, there was the infamous 24-0 lead on the road in the divisional round against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs. What was that, 2019?
Yeah, it was 2019.
Or 2020. They beat the Bills. We beat Josh Allen and the Bills in a home playoff game, if you can believe that. And then right after that, had a 24-0 lead, which no team has ever lost in a playoff game, I think. Would have been playing the Titans at home in the AFC Championship game, but of course lost like 54-24. And there was a crazy fake punt we tried to do and all. It was, we had Deshaun Watson, who we thought was a franchise quarterback, and then he fell out of favor with the team and wanted to get traded. And then the scandal came out, and he was basically suspended for a year, or sat out for a year, and then did get traded. We had the David Culley experiment, who by all accounts was a great guy, really respected NFL coach, but had never been a coordinator in 30 years as an NFL assistant. And the Texans hired him out of nowhere to be their head coach after Bill O'Brien. That lasted a year. He actually won 4 games, surprised everybody, and then got fired. And then the Texans brought in Lovie Smith for a year, and then he got fired. And of course, last season, the Texans had the number 1 pick sewn up all season long, and then won a miraculous game where Lovey decided to go for it and go for 2 at the end of the game, which he knew he was getting let go probably, and he was going down swinging. It's just, there have been a lot of hard times. The whole Jack Easterby thing was, a big saga. And, there hasn't really been that much to look forward to. And you're talking about watching the games on Sundays, like, I've got 2 TVs set up in my apartment, and I did this bachelor pad kind of thing, but I've got 2 TVs stacked on top of each other, and I did that so I could watch the Texans on one TV and, maybe something that's going a little better on another TV.
Right. That's a great idea.
And we almost beat the Cowboys last year. That would have been fun. There's some moments, but I think that we've been through a lot. It's been a short period of time, but I will say I think the Texans fan base is just waiting, and I've got to meet a lot of day one season ticket holders just through friends or from my time working for the team. And I know the passion is there, and this city is just ready and waiting. And I'm really excited now that we've got, a new beginning, a new era with DeMeco Ryans. I mean, what was first thing you thought when we got DeMeco Ryans?
Oh, I mean, that he was my dream hire, and he was kind of I had heard that he wasn't interested. And so I was like, people were talking about it. He was interviewing, but I was kind of, the rumblings I was hearing was that he's just doing it just to be nice, and he's not really interested in the job, which made sense to me. Because from the outside looking in, and even from the inside looking in, it was a dumpster fire. There was not much going on here. And DeMeco was a sought-after head coach. Any team who needed a head coach wanted DeMeco Ryans.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't think it was going to happen. And then whenever got the news that he took his second interview and then that it was kind of getting closer, I was just overjoyed. And it's just such a perfect fit. He's like you've been around him, the kind of guy he is, the type of leader he was when he was a player, and now the type of leader he was in San Francisco as their coordinator, and now he's here, and it's just glowing, and he just brings this juice to training camp, to OTAs. OTAs were exciting.
To me, he's one of the biggest thing is he's a guy that players are going to be excited to play for, and I mean, I'll just tell you from my experience with him. So when I arrived in 2007, it was DeMeco's second season. I think he led the league in tackles as a rookie. Mm-hmm. He's All-American at University of Alabama, from Bessemer, Alabama, which I'm pretty sure is the same town Bo Jackson's from, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And, small town kid, All-American at Alabama, team captain at Alabama. He won the Lott Trophy at Alabama, which is not just on field, but off the field excellence. He was a guy with great GPA, a guy who was a team captain at Bama. And he was the leader and the captain of the Texans defense from the get-go. Yeah. And that was clear to me coming in his second season right away. He's a soft-spoken guy, but not on the field, not in the huddle. And I'm sure you've seen videos of him in the huddle or seen videos of him on the sideline as a coach getting all fired up. Yep. He gets people ready to play. And, I remember, I think just he was such it's an overused term, but such a student of the game. Mm-hmm. And he was a guy that you could just see being a coach, even as a player. He was basically like a Peyton Manning style quarterback on the defense.
Right.
And, I always think about Brian Cushing, who I've friends with Brian. He is hands down the scariest, most alpha dude I've ever met in person, or even seen on TV in a football game. You've seen him with the bloody face when he headbutted a Browns player with no helmet on. I mean, that's, Cushing. But Brian Cushing's locker was right next to DeMeco Ryans, and he pretty much revered DeMeco. Yeah. It was a huge mentor for him. He said many times he played an instrumental role in his career. But for me to see the way that Brian Cushing looked up to DeMeco Ryans, and DeMeco took him under his wing, and DeMeco was imparting all this stuff to him and telling him, and giving him all these pointers. That says about as much as you could about someone to me, about how he can command respect from other players. Yeah. Because he might be a different style of guy than Brian Cushing, but those guys are close as can be. And I just saw that with everybody on the defense. And not just that, but he's a great guy off the field. And I know that, all we really care about, we want to win, right?
Yeah, right.
But I think he's really the whole package. I can even remember we were going down. We had him on the cover of the Texans Game Day magazine, which I was the editor of, and it was like 2009, I think, the year of Hurricane Ike. Mm-hmm. And we were going to play the Ravens, and we had this whole shoot set up at NASA, where we went down to NASA to take photos of DeMeco to be on the cover of the Game Day program. The game got pushed back, of course, because of the hurricane. Yeah. But it's a totally random story. But I remember going down to NASA with him, and we were asking him just about what was the hardest place you ever played in the SEC, and he told this great story about going to LSU, and he's like, "Yeah, we're in the bus, and the bus is pulling up to the stadium in Death Valley, and the bus is rocking because all the fans are outside as we're about to get out." And he's like, and in this whole thing, in this chaos, he saw this one calm moment where it was a baby, like a little kid on dad's shoulders, LSU gear, and it was calming for a second, and then all of a sudden, the dad takes the little kid's hand and stuck his middle finger up on the side of the window. And he's like, that's how he knew that Death Valley was real. But DeMeco, I think, is it's not just that he's a great guy, he's universally respected, he was a great player. Like, that's not necessarily going to mean he's a great coach, but you've seen what he's done as a coach in San Francisco, right? And he climbed the ladder really fast there with Kyle Shanahan, who was on the Texans coaching staff when DeMeco was here. He led one of the best defenses in the NFL. He is just like a football guy through and through and through. And not only that, I think we've got someone who looks to be a very competent and capable general manager. Obviously Nick Caserio was very in demand. The Texans got caught accused of tampering, trying to get him as their GM a couple years prior, which is a whole nother fiasco. But they brought him in. He was clearly somebody New England really wanted and instrumental there. I think the trade he worked for Deshaun Watson, in retrospect, looks like an incredible trade to get those draft picks. And, people say we gave up a ton for Will Anderson, but if he ends up being the best player from this draft, it's going to be worth it.
Exactly.
Will Anderson was a guy that people were talking about as a number 1 overall pick the year prior. If he could have declared for the draft, he was rated number 1 on all the big boards. And I think he's the real deal, man. And I'll tell you what, I went to the DeMeco Ryans press conference, and that was one of the things that got me so fired up about everything going on, because I was fortunate to be invited by Bun B, the Houston legend from UGK, of course, and co-owner of Trill Burgers, along with myself and our partners. Bun was invited by the team to attend the press conference. He invited me to go with him, which I kind of invited myself maybe, but he said, yeah, you can come. And because Bun knew just, how much that would mean to me to go. And so we went there, and man, there were, I'm sure people have seen this, but there were like 30 of his former teammates, DeMeco Ryans, like guys that played for the Texans from like 2006 all the way through 2011. Brian Pittman, the long snapper who I hadn't seen in like probably 15 years. Guys like Travis Johnson, Andre Johnson, Brian Cushing, all these guys were there and to support DeMeco Ryans, and because they were excited about what's going on with the team. And then you had 10 to 15 of the current players who were there. And for 6 years now, I worked for the team. I was the primary writer for the team website, doing their social media, all that. I mean, I went to every single press conference. I never saw anything remotely close to that. And then we go to the locker room after. There was a reception with some of the old players. Kevin Walter was in there. Earl Mitchell, the former nose tackle, who's a good buddy. And Jonathan Joseph was in there. And DeMeco's walking around making the rounds, and a little intimidated. I'm not going to lie. He's walking around, and I wanted to say hi, but part of me didn't know if he was going to remember who I was.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. He's had a lot of more interesting things happen since the time that I've seen him. He walked up, I said hi, and of course immediately he's like, "Hey, what are you doing these days?" And he actually cared to listen to me, ramble about something for a couple minutes here. And I was wearing a 2011 division champ shirt, which I think is the greatest team in team history, which we'll talk about another time. Would have won the Super Bowl if Matt Schaub hadn't gotten hurt, I believe, but we'll get there another day. No, but DeMeco commented on the shirt. We're talking about all this stuff, and I just, even from 2 minutes talking to him, I felt like I was ready to run through a wall.
Yeah,
and that's the big thing for me right now is all the potential with the team.
Yeah,
I'm calling it that this Super Bowl drought is going to end by the year 2026. I'm calling that right now.
Ooh.
It could be the 2026 season. It could be February 2026. I'm just saying, I feel it.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's okay for me that it's going to be a few years. I think you look at what San Francisco did. You look at Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch coming in there. They had a long runway, and look at the success they've had, right? The Texans are in this for the long term with DeMeco. They're in this for the long term with their roster. There are some great new additions and prospects that have fans excited. At the end of the show, I'm going to attempt to name as many of the 53-man roster as I can. And Noah's going to fact check me on that, and it's probably going to get ugly. But guys from obviously CJ Stroud and Will Anderson, but Jalen Petrie and Damian Pierce, who I hope you had on your fantasy football teams. Jalen Petrie, these guys, there's some exciting young talent there. And, again, I feel like if they win 5 games, if they win 9 games, which maybe that's the ceiling this year, it's going to be fun to watch football again. Yep. And it's something we haven't been able to say for a long time.
That is true.
And I think another thing about the team is, as a part of this, there's a culture shift with the team. You see it in the branding the Texans are doing. They've got these H-Town made shirts now. As I mentioned, I'm one of the owners of Trill Burgers, the Smash Burger concept with Bun B. And, we're in the stadium for football games this year, which is awesome. For me, it was like a full circle moment.
Yeah, congrats to that. That's huge.
Thank you. Have you had the burgers?
I haven't yet.
No, we'll bring some burgers for a podcast recording.
Please.
Okay. Hold me to that too. I got to watch my red meat intake a little bit because I've been eating a lot of them. But
yeah, I bet.
But we've got 4 booths inside the stadium, and even for me, it's a full circle moment because I met Bun B when I was working for the Texans. I had a podcast back in 2012 to 13. It was called Off the Turf with Scurf. Most of my friends call me Scurf. You guys can call me that.
That's an amazing title, by the way.
Thank you.
A good name.
Thank you. Yes, it was. I thought about bringing it back for this, but I think it's new beginnings. Also, Also, I'm just very spiteful about the Titans right now with their old uniforms. But the idea back then was I was talking to players or people with the team about who they were off the field, how they got to where they were and all that. And that was really fun. I interviewed Andre Johnson, which I was really intimidated about back then. He was like the one guy that even players on the team would tell me, like, I don't want to say the wrong thing around him because he's Dre, And nicest guy ever, but just like, he's a guy you want to impress,
Yeah, of course.
I remember talking to Brian Brayman, the special teams standout and linebacker with crazy long hair, and he was telling me about his 7'4" grandfather and how his whole family didn't have teeth and anyway, stuff like that. We did one with Cushing. But the last thing I did when I worked for the Texans in my last week there, I had met Bun B like through Twitter. We were Twitter friends. I saw him on the sideline at a game in New England when we lost to the Patriots in the infamous letter jacket season. This was the playoff game where we lost. But I remember I met him on the sideline of a game, and my last week on the job, I just shot Bun a DM on Twitter, just kind of shot my shot and was like, hey, I'm leaving the team, going to work in PR. I have this podcast. Any chance you'd want to come on? And I didn't know if he'd say yes. I didn't know if he'd respond. He responded like very quickly, sent me his number, said, yeah, I'll come down to the stadium. Could not have been nicer about it. So we spent like 2 hours at the stadium. I got to give him a tour of the locker room and stuff. Yeah. And I remember Arian Foster and Dwayne Brown and all these guys are in there. Sat down with me for like an hour. I probably like took way more of his time than I should have. I just talked to him all about the Texans. And from there, we kind of stayed in touch and eventually became friends. And so all these years later, for us to now be inside NRG Stadium with a burger concept that I co-owned with Bun and some other partners, and that's gotten all this national acclaim, is really crazy for me. And and Cal McNair and Hannah McNair, the ownership of the team, even came to Trill Burgers to record a hype video for it, which was about 3 weeks ago to make the announcement. And Bun went out of his way when they came there to tell them, hey, I'm really excited about this, but I'm really excited for Nick. And, I know how much time he spent there and all that. And that meant a lot to me, And so shameless plug, if you're at the games, I think we're in sections 115, 135, and 2 on the 500 level. There may be a line. We're working on getting that as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But a lot of things with that, with DeMeco coming back, for me just feels like it's full circle, and that's why I'm buying all the way back in, man. I feel like it's time. I'm excited to rediscover the team. I'm excited to learn about like who these guys are, and see the progress that they make. You know? Probably pick up some fantasy gems. I drafted Tank Dell in my 2 fantasy teams because I feel like he's going to make some things happen.
He absolutely is.
We'll see. I could be a chump for that, or just a homer, but I'm feeling it. So, I think that mostly wraps up what I wanted to cover here today. I think as we go on with the show, I'm excited to get into some of these different eras. I definitely am going to be talking more with friends about the 2011-12 seasons. Hopefully getting some of the guys from those squads to come on the show. And I've got some diehard fans and friends of mine in mind that I definitely want to bring on, and other people connected to the team. But I think that I lost my train of thought here for a second. Noah, what was I was going to say. Again, I'm kind of new to this podcasting thing again. It's been a long time, so I'm a little rusty.
Yeah.
But I think I'm supposed to say where you can find this show, which is again on Apollo HOU YouTube
channel, and then the Spotify and Apple Podcasts feeds as well.
Okay, that'll be coming soon. Thank you, Noah, for helping me keep my life together over here. So we're gonna end. You know what? Actually, before I get to the very end here, I don't even know if they're playing the Football Time in Houston song again. Do you?
I don't know, actually. Yeah. They should. It's a banger.
I mean, it is a banger. I actually have a CD single of it.
Really?
Well, I have the sleeve of a CD, but I don't know where the CD is.
Yeah.
But it still looks like a cool keep. I have some super random cool like memorabilia from when I worked for the team.
Yeah.
I've got some really awesome stuff, like a football autograph by the entire 2011 team.
Oh, man.
And like a helmet from the entire 2012 team.
Oh, wow.
And something that like I have a nice personal thing JJ Watt had written for me on like on my last day there.
That's awesome.
But I also have like ticket stub from the very first game, all these random things.
That's a really cool collection.
I've got a few things. I've got some game balls. We'll have to bring some of these for the.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to the Matt Schaub jersey back here that you guys brought out, and Derek Stingley, the future. But I'm a big fan of Matt Schaub. I know he's got people on different sides of the spectrum as far as opinions on him go. But
no, the past and the present, and also Matt Schaub, best quarterback the Texans have ever had.
He is. He led the league in passing. I think it was 2008.
Yep.
Great guy. But recently the Texans head of ticketing, John Schriever, retired. They recognized him at the first preseason game. He was like the 5th employee in team history.
Wow.
Somebody I know really well, or I had known during my time. And shout out to John if you happen to be listening, which I doubt. But I'd love to get guys like that and bring them in on the show, talk to them about their memories of the team and all that. And that's the direction we'll probably be going. We'll see. It's going to be fun as it evolves. But check us out on the Apollo HOU channels, coming soon on Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. And now we're going to end this thing with a test.
All right. I'm excited. I got the depth chart here.
Okay.
Ready to go.
Okay.
I think you're going to do better than you think you will.
I am going to attempt to name as many players on the Texans 53-man roster, 2023 Texans, as I can. And I'm going to preface this by saying I'm going to suck at this. When I worked for the Texans from 2007 to 13, I could tell you every single player on the roster like the back of my hand, kind of like when you memorize like the state capitals and all that.
Yeah.
I had that stuff. It was my job. Like when we signed a player, I had to add them to the website. I had to put them in the game program, all this other stuff. And I could probably tell you the whole practice squad too. That's what I was supposed to do. I do not know the roster now, but I'm excited to rediscover this team. Learn about the team. I think hopefully along with all of you as we embark on this season and beyond. So we're gonna name as many players as we can. What do you want to set the over under on me for? Is how many I'm gonna get?
I think your line is going to be 22.
You think highly of me.
I think you can do 22.
I think you might be disappointed, but we'll see. Okay. All right. I'm going to write these down so I can follow along. So, number 1, C.J. Stroud.
Yep.
QB1. Will Anderson Jr.
Yep.
DE1, whatever you want to call him. The new number 51, by the way. Shout out to our friend Daryl Sharpton, Scurfield Group client and former Houston Texans linebacker, hugely successful entrepreneur. He was a linebacker from Miami, if you remember, Will Sharp. Now Will Anderson's got that 51.
He sure does.
Tank Dell.
There you go.
Okay, I've got 3. I'm gonna. You can count for me, I guess.
Yeah, I'm counting.
You're counting? Okay.
Yep.
John Mechie.
Okay.
Wide receiver. Awesome that he's coming back from leukemia.
Absolutely.
And could be a great player too, but just a great story regardless. Another Alabama guy. Speaking of great college teams. We got a USC Trojan, Robert Woods, a wide receiver. Sleeper, I would say. He's had an awesome career. Had some injuries. So Nico Collins, also wide receiver. Dalton Schultz, is that the tight end's name?
Yep.
Okay. We do not have Jordan Akins anymore, who caught that horrible pass to beat the Colts last year, but I don't want to talk about that. Jalen Petrie. Let's see. John Weeks, possibly the greatest long snapper in NFL history. He's got to be the longest tenured long snapper in NFL history.
Yeah.
Number 46 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts.
Yep.
John Weeks, when DeMeco Ryans had the press conference to be introduced as head coach, they had all his former teammates go on stage.
Yeah.
30 of them there. John Weeks was in that picture.
Yeah.
And then the current players went on stage, and John Weeks was in that picture. Because he's played for the Texans for that long.
Yep.
And awesome dude. And shout out to John. Let's see. John Weeks. Okay. Jerry Hughes. I know we've got him.
Yep.
Good signing there. Derek Stingley Jr., I should say. Number 3 pick last year. I think he's going to – everything that I've read from people that are smarter than me about football is that he's really suited for DeMeco Ryans' system, and he's going to ball out. Yep. I believe we got Jimmy Ward from the 49ers.
Sure did.
Okay. Kaimi Fairbairn, is he still the kicker?
He is.
Yes. Shout out to the Hawaiian there. I think he went to UCLA. Is that right?
USC maybe?
No, definitely not USC.
No, I'm not sure.
We won't hold UCLA against him, but he's been, through all the years, one thing the Texans have had is great special teams.
That's true.
I will say.
That is true.
From Shane Leckler, Matt Turk, John Weeks.
Shane Leckler is one of the best to ever do it.
He should be in the Hall of Fame.
He should.
Okay, I'm stalling now because I'm starting to run out of players. Davis Mills, okay, QB2.
Yep.
Got that. Let's see. Laramie Tunsil.
Yep.
Best left tackle in the NFL.
100%.
Not a bad guy to have in your team. Titus Howard.
Yep.
Who, shout out to Titus Howard, came by and tried Trill Burgers at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. Tried him again. Shout out to Laramie. Laramie Tunsil requested Trill Burgers to be catered for all of his teammates. Like one of the last practices of training camp. It was the week before we played the Dolphins. We got a call. It's something Laramie Tunsil does for teammates every year. Well, second year he's done it now, where he just surprises them with food from local vendors at the end of like a Monday in training camp one day. And so Trill Burgers was one of 3 that got invited to be out there. And it was awesome, man. I got to talk to him, the guys on his team. And it's something, he just does as a thank you to his teammates. And man, we did a video with him trying the Trill Burger, and even just looking at him running away in the video and laughing about something. That's a big dude that can really move. It's a big dude. I mean, he's anyway, so we got that. Okay, Juice Scruggs.
Yep.
Who Brian Cushing announced as the pick this year, which I remember. Shit. I'm how many players do I have now?
You're at 16.
16.
You're doing well. I think you can get up to 22.
Okay, let's see. No. Roy Lopez was the guy I liked, but I don't think he's on the team anymore.
Cut.
Okay, we're not going to count that one. Boy, it's not looking good right now. We got cornerbacks. We got safeties. I feel like I'm missing some really obvious guys.
You said both safeties.
Oh, I did.
You said Jimmy Ward and Jalen Petrie.
Okay, I said one corner.
You said one corner. You said Stingley.
I think I'm blanking on the rest. Damian Pierce. Okay, can't forget him.
Yep.
So that's 17. You put my over under at 22.
22, yeah. 22 and a half.
22 and a half. Shit. Okay, there's like 3 other really good offensive linemen that I can't think of. I mean, the Texans have a really good line coming in. Man, I hate to say it, but I think I'm tapped out.
You think you're tapped out?
I think. Can you read me who we have?
I didn't write down names.
You didn't write down who we have.
But I know you got CJ, Tank, Will Anderson, Kaimi. I've only been writing the numbers, though, sadly.
Okay. You know what? I think that's it. I'm throwing in the towel. It's 17 players. That is pathetic.
17? Not
17
bad.
players. I told you it was going to suck. But.
Yeah.
All right, who are some like obvious people that I missed?
That's the issue. I mean, there's not many obvious ones that I would say. I mean, you got all the obvious ones. Steven Nelson's another corner we have.
Okay.
Denzel Perryman is our.
Devin Singletary would have been an easy one.
Devin Singletary is a good one.
Skill position guys, I should have.
Yeah.
Who else did we miss? Houston Texans roster.
You missed.
Anybody you're excited about that I missed?
Well, Denzel Perryman's a guy. Christian Harris, second-year linebacker at Alabama.
Yeah, we got the other Alabama linebacker.
Henry To'oTo'o is on the team now.
My buddy Drew Doherty is going to kill me for not getting.
Oh, Drew's.
Kenyon Green, I forgot about.
Yep.
First-round draft pick. All right, guys, we're gonna work on this. We're gonna work on this. I'm looking at Eric
Nico
Murray.
Collins.
Got him.
Yeah.
Got him.
So
Okay, you know what? As I look at this roster, I don't feel as bad.
No,
actually, I don't know. I did not know who a lot of these guys.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say. I mean, a lot of these guys, you got the obvious ones.
Okay.
But yeah.
So that's exactly the point. We're gonna be diving back in on all this, talking. I would say, give me 2 weeks. It's gonna be a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to try this exercise with you again, and at least I can get 22, 23. But I guess that's it. I want to thank you for accompanying me on this, maiden voyage here.
I actually had a great time listening, and you have an interesting perspective on things that is fun.
Well, I appreciate that. Appreciate all of you for checking this out. If you've made it this far, God bless you. We'll be back. I'm excited to see what the game day experience is like come week 2 when the Texans play the Colts. I'm excited to see how CJ does against the Baltimore Ravens. I think it can only go up from where it's been.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a lot of fun following this team along throughout the season. So thanks for tuning in, and see you guys next week.